Creating a mood board can be a really fun part of the branding process. It's a chance to get creative and really start to envision how you want your brand to look. But to get the most out of your mood board, you need to have a strategy in how you create it and use it. Creating a mood board isn't something that you should just blindly jump into. Before you start your visual research, you need to start with setting some strong brand foundation. You need to be doing research and writing and start mind mapping and coming up with ideas and thinking about what you actually want to communicate about your business through your brand visuals. So this includes things like who's your audience, what are you offering them, how are you helping them, what parts of your personality do you want to bring to your business, what are your business values, how do you want to position yourself in the marketplace. All these things will give your visual research fuel. And if you want to learn more about that side of the process, then you can check out these videos. Once you have a written direction, then you'll be able to approach your mood board with much more confidence. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is distill your writing down to about 20 to 30 keywords. So start pulling out the real key ideas about the mood, the feeling, and the direction that you want, and what it is that you're trying to communicate. Then it's time to get on Pinterest, Google Images, stock sites, flick through magazines, Instagram, anywhere that you like to source visual imagery, and start looking for images that represent those keywords. You also need to make sure that the images complement each other. So you may start with a slightly broader search and start culling things down so that they start to all have a similar feel and they work really well together. You also want to be sure that your images have a similar color palette, because the images you choose will also start to head you into the color direction you're going to be using in your branding. And it also makes it just feel much more cohesive and easier to get a sense of the vibe and feeling when everything complements both in feeling and in color tone. So some of the kind of images that you need to be looking for. You want images that simply set the mood. You want images that show pattern and texture. You also want images that set the tone and the kind of photography style. So think about the kind of photos and images you want to be using in your branding and find other images that are going to inspire the style you're going to go for. You also want to show some typography and maybe even find some fonts or font direction, things that are going to inspire both your logo and your brand font. Show things like layout and graphic elements. So think about the kinds of things that you want to be creating for your brand and look for inspiration for that. Maybe it's layouts or graphical elements or illustrations. So think about what you want to create and start looking for styles and layouts that are going to inspire that. And as I said before, look for a similar color palette. So look for images that have all this sort of similar color palette. You may have already had in mind the kind of color direction you wanted to go. And as you start looking at images, you'll be able to reinforce this more and start to see how you're actually creating that feeling and vibe you want through the colors you choose as well. And depending on your business and what industry you're in, you may also want images that show aspects of your industry. So it could be images of people making or creating the things that you do, or it could be workspaces or part of process. So anything that you think is relevant that is going to show things to do with what your business is all about. Now, once you have a really good collection of images, that's when you need to start culling things down. You want to keep it fairly simple and not have it overwhelming and too many things. So you may be cutting out stuff that you really loved, but you can always keep it in a Pinterest board to look at later. Don't worry, it's not gone forever, but when it comes to your actual mood board that's going to send you in the right direction for your branding, you really need to cull things down and keep it simple. So start looking at, if certain images all have the same thing and you need to just pick the one that, encapsulates the best. Keep it simple and make sure that the images all flow nicely together, that it all complements, and it just creates this piece of artwork of its own when you put all those images together into a board. Now, making the most of your mood board. Once you've finished your mood board and you're happy with that overall feeling, you've carefully curated it and laid it out and it all flows nicely. Now you're probably feeling really inspired to start working on your brand graphic. The first thing you want to be doing is reviewing your images. So now that your mood board's finished, you want to start actually looking at each of the images you've selected and actually asking yourself why you picked that image. Was it the vibe, the color, the feeling, what it communicated, the sense of movement, or the the style of it. Jot it down because this will help you make better use of your mood board. While you might think, well, I kind of know why I picked these images, why do I need to write that down? But taking the time to really think deeply about it will help you better use the mood board, because then you'll be thinking more deeply about what your intention is and what it is about those images that you're really wanting to bring to your brand. You may have chosen some images just on gut feeling, they just felt right. So taking the time to really question why it felt right can be really helpful. So a quick example, look at this image. This image could have been added to a mood board for various reasons, because it has an Australian bush feel, or a really organic natural feel, or because it feels vintage and nostalgic, or perhaps because it brings a bit of a springtime feel, or maybe because it has a schoolhouse educational vibe, or maybe it even inspires a feeling of nature journaling. So as you can see, one image could say all kinds of different things depending on the context and the intention. So really take the time to look at your images and think about why you wanted to bring them into it. Why do you want to use them as inspiration for your brand? The next thing you want to be doing is narrowing down your keywords. So remember, before you made your mood board, that you started with maybe 20 to 30 keywords. Now you want to distill that down to just 10 key words. So looking at your mood board, what are the words that come to mind? What is it really communicating? What is that vibe and feeling that you're getting off your mood board as a whole? And it's likely going to be words that came off that original list, and you're just culling it down to the real core things that this mood board is saying. This will get you thinking about how everything works together cohesively. So as you start working on your brand graphics and concepts, you'll be thinking about how to make it all have that same feeling and vibe. As you work on sketches, you're able to go back to your keywords and think, is this saying that? Is this communicating that feeling? And if you're tossing up between a few different design ideas, you can also think about, well, which says it best? Which of these captures that essence best? The next thing is to look at inspiration beyond the obvious. So look beyond the literal obvious. Look at the overall movement, shape, tone, shadow, energy and flow, all those things that aren't obvious in an image, but it still is giving this sense of those things. Do all the images on your board create this soft, flowy, curvy feeling? Or does your board have a more bold, jagged, energetic feel? And then you can consider how your board can inspire the use of movement, shape, line, spacing, texture and tone in your graphics. The next thing to consider is brand positioning. So your board isn't just about inspiring the feeling and the vibe, but it's also about how you want to position your brand. Consider how you want to position your brand in the marketplace. Do you want to be a luxury high-end brand, or do you want to be professional and approachable, or do you want to be something more cheap and cheerful? So really think about, what your competitors are doing, what other people in your industry are doing, and how you want to position your business in the marketplace. And looking at your board, what is your gut reaction about the positioning? What do you think it's communicating about the positioning of your brand? If you saw that and it wasn't yours, what would that instant feeling be about the kind of business it is? And then you'd be able to review, did I pick the right images? Is it putting it off and not really positioning it the way I wanted? And if necessary, you may have to adjust things. When you're intentional about making sure that your brand graphics communicate your business's positioning, then you're going to be attracting the right people for the right reason. Next, make sure that you always keep your mood board by your side. So don't just create it, stick it away in a folder, then get on with your brand graphics and just think, well, I know what I created, it's in my head. Always have it next to you for every stage, from concepts to making tweaks to creating the final designs, because then you're constantly referencing it and constantly making sure that your designs line up with that initial intention. And they've always got that vibe and feeling and communicating what you wanted it to, and you're not led astray or got carried away with some design and next thing you knew you were creating something completely different. Make sure that it's always there and you keep referencing. Finally, let your mood board inspire your font and color selections. Your mood board should have had all a similar color palette, and so what you can do is start pulling out all different colors from your mood board, and then you can start seeing which colors go really well together, which make a really complementary color palette, and start culling colors, tweaking colors. But you're using your mood board as a starting base point. You're not just trying to come up with colors right from scratch. You've got something to start with, and it makes it so much easier to choose colors when you've got that starting point. It'll help direct things like the tone, saturation, and vibrancy of the colors as well. And then the fonts that you choose can either be based on fonts that you've included in your mood board, or just the feeling that your mood board is creating. So if your mood board has a soft, gentle, calming feeling, then you're going to be wanting to start looking for fonts that have that same soft, gentle, calming feeling. Or it could be that you're looking at that positioning. So you think, well, my mood board creates this positioning of a brand that's very high-end luxury. So then I want to look for fonts that communicate high-end luxury, because fonts are very powerful in communicating positioning when it comes to branding. So it's often a really good direction to go. As you can see, using your mood board with some strategy can really help you create much better designs and a brand that you really love. So I hope you enjoyed today's video, and don't forget that if you want to learn more about graphic design, branding and creativity, then be sure to subscribe to this channel, and I'll see you next time.